But the thing that I wanted to talk about mostly today, and what I was asked to really speak on, was really the environmental dimensions of agriculture. There is nothing that has hit this planet harder since the last ice age than the invention of agriculture, and especially its second part, the invention of the Green Revolution. We have fundamentally changed and damaged this planet because of the way we farm in extraordinary ways. It's almost unimaginable how much agriculture has changed this world. And what we do today isn't even, it's not, is it sustainable or not? It's not even remotely sustainable. So this is a huge challenge. One is just a simple fact of we've done more to the surface of the earth to grow food than every other aspect of the economy in human history combined. This map you hopefully can see a little bit of is a map of in green where crops are grown, in brown where pastures and animals are being grown. Together, agriculture uses about 40% of all the land on Earth. All of the cities and suburbs of the planet put together are about 0.6% of the Earth's land. For every acre of concrete in the world, there's 60 acres of agriculture in the world. So agriculture dominates the planet in extraordinary ways. So we really have to reckon with that. In terms of the losses of habitat and biodiversity, these 6 great extinction crises our planet is facing, to first approximation, is entirely due to agriculture. Nothing else comes close. We also, of course, are seeing tremendous impacts of water use from agriculture all over the world. Here in California, 80% of all the water moved in a pipe or a canal or used by humans in any way is used for one thing: to irrigate crops. Isn't that extraordinary? Alfalfa alone, just one crop here in California, alfalfa uses more water than all of the cities and human beings in the state combined. And it's not just places like California, it's all over the world. 70% of what we call water withdrawals are used around the world for agriculture. 90% of what's called consumptive water use, water that you use once and it doesn't go back to the same watershed. So whether you look at gross water use or net water use, it's either 70 or 90% of all the water on the planet is used for irrigation. That's extraordinary. It's not just limited, though, to the impacts on land and water. Agriculture is by far the single biggest driver of climate change, period. Now, you might think, well, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't it energy? I'm like, well, yes, but energy is multiple economic sectors. There's transportation, there's generating electricity, there's the built environment, there's industry. If you look at sector by sector, it turns out agricultural emissions are at least 25%, perhaps as high as 35% of all greenhouse gas emissions as an economic sector. Call it 30 in round numbers. That's mainly from deforestation. Second would be methane, and third would be nitrous oxide from overusing fertilizers, the nitrogen crisis. Think about that. 30% of all the global warming in the world right now is caused by one thing: growing food in an industrial manner. The next biggest sector of the economy contributing to climate change is about 15%, and that's every mode of transportation in the world combined. Ag is double that. So if you want to solve the climate problem, you must, and first, address agriculture. It's the biggest lever there is. And if you put all of these things together, and Patrick referenced this, scientists around the world, I was one of these folks, about 30 of us around the world put together kind of a report card about the state of the global environment, and we called it planetary boundaries. If you can see this little slide back here in this kind of bright lit room, the green areas are sectors of the global environment that are still kind of healthy. They're in their kind of Holocene geologic norm. What we've been used to for tens of thousands of years is sort of in that center of the bullseye. The yellow areas are where we're like, wow, now we're changing the planet beyond anything we've seen recently. Red is like, this is completely geologically unprecedented. Where you see that already is in what we call the kind of genetic diversity crisis, the massive loss of biodiversity, again, primarily linked to agriculture. The nitrogen and phosphorus crisis, we're now tripled the Earth's movement of nitrogen and phosphorus around the Earth's crust, mainly from chemical fertilizers. Totally geologically unprecedented. Climate change, water withdrawals, land use change are all in the yellow zone. So it's very clear the large disturbance we've hit this planet with is primarily, to first approximation, all about food. A distant second would be the world's energy sectors. And yet, all the rhetoric we hear about global environmental crisis is reversed. We hear about fossil fuels, we don't hear about agriculture. I argue it should be the reverse. And maybe a lot of you would too. So what we need to do is stop this kind of, this is a problem, but the biggest problem of all of agriculture is how we've been thinking about it. For years, we've been thinking about growing our way to success. Now, how many of you remember Sarah Palin? Kind of hard to forget, right? I love Sarah Palin. She's so great, because you ask her, what's your energy policy when she was running for vice president? It was simple. It was 3 words: drill, baby, drill. Gotta love it. It's simple. You know where she stands. We've had an implicit kind of bumper sticker like that for agriculture, kind of grow, baby, grow. If we had a problem, we'll just grow more. And that's what we've been doing for years. And that kind of green revolution thinking had some benefits, but a lot of downsides. For years, we've actually been growing more by using more chemicals, more energy, more water. You pump more stuff in, you might get more stuff out. And to a point, that's successful. If you narrow the view of success, all of these red areas on this map are showing where corn yields have grown tremendously over the last 40 years. We've gotten very good at growing corn. Now, if we only needed it, that would be useful. The problem is we've been growing stuff like crazy, not asking, is this really useful? And especially for crops that people need. I'm not looking at broader nutritional issues, but if you just look at raw calories, corn and soybeans actually aren't really useful for the world right now, while things like rice and wheat, which are still staple crops for most of the world, half of the calories consumed in the world today will be in the form of rice or wheat. Half of all the calories in the global nutrition balance sheet are from 2 crops. And those have stagnating yields. This is showing a map of the world's wheat distribution. Everywhere in brown are places where the yields of wheat have been stagnant for over a decade. And yet industry is not investing in improving yields of wheat and rice because that's what poor people eat. So we really have a problem here. Even the green revolution, if you think that's a good idea, even that is beginning to fail because yields are stagnating in the crops we actually need and improving in the ones we don't. So this is a real problem. What we really need to do is change our thinking about this and really address more balance. We need to find ways to deliver more nutrition and real human benefits with less environmental and social harm. And I like to look at this as kind of a balancing act. How do we grow the food we need? On the top might be measures of food security, growing agricultural crops, turning them into real food, getting them to people who need it, and doing it in a resilient way. And then below is the environmental damages of agriculture. They're huge and completely unsustainable. Let's see if we can do more than just grow more food. Can we truly improve food access and distribution and equity and true measures of food security and radically ratchet down the environmental impacts of agriculture?